Hello, everyone. Jimmy Grant here. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Mr. Tcha Limberger. We're in San Sebastian, Spain, at his beautiful place here. Um, we're gonna have Cha at Camp Django this year, October 8th through 12th in Ashland, Oregon, which is great news because he's an amazing guitarist, amazing violinist, and he's very well respected in this world of Django music and Gypsy Jazz. Um, so let's go ahead and get started with the interview. And here we go. So Cha, you grew up in a kind of community of playing gypsy music and things like that, or mostly Django jazz and things like that. Can you kind of tell us about your start? And you started playing guitar or clarinet was your first instrument?
Guitar was my first instrument when I was 6, but I think my voice was actually my real first instrument. I've always been singing ever since I can remember 2 or 3. And I was very deeply moved by flamenco or flamenco-like music, and I thought as a kid that would be what I would be doing when I would be grown up, flamenco singing. And then when I was 6, and I had been kind of vaguely accompanying myself on a guitar that I put like this, and I had tuned it into a kind of a 7 chord, a dominant chord, and I was kind of fooling around with it, trying to accompany some songs, noticing that when I got to the minor 4th I had a problem, etc. Koen de Kouter, a friend of my father's, colleague of my father's, very good musician and very influential in my life. He saw me doing that and was like, why don't you really properly learn how to play the guitar? And I said, oh, okay, if I have to. Okay. And then I started. He showed me the first 2 chords. My father, a couple of weeks later, showed me the next 2 chords. And then I was off, basically. I was just finding things. And some people would show me things. And they would come to my house, my father's house. And they would go, hey, who did you learn that from? And I was like, from my uncle. Oh, but you could also do this. Ah, yeah, cool. And so I for a long time I've said that I was an autodidact, and I'd like to not say that anymore, because I think I've just learned from everyone who was willing to teach me something. And that was very lucky, because my father was a musician, and in my parents' house there was always musicians coming in and out, showing instruments, rehearsing, just coming by for a coffee. So yeah, I saw many people when I was a kid. And when I was about 12, I started playing clarinet and double bass, and started exchanging my flamenco guitar for a Django Reinhardt guitar. Not because I really wanted to change, or God knows, maybe I did actually by then. It's just that I really noticed that faking flamenco was not doing the job. It was just like, I was accusing Manitas de Platas of doing that, and I was doing it myself, and I started noticing that doesn't work. You have to really do the thing, and when you're 12 you can hardly tell your parents, like, I'm off to Sevilla for 6 years, see you. So I didn't, and I just changed styles. What I haven't said is that my mother was Flemish, and my father is Manus, or Cinto, so the gypsies from Western Europe, the Gypos who play the Django Reinhardt style music mainly. They also say that they play Hungarian music, which means that they play some D minor tunes that are mainly Russian and some Jewish and some Hungarian. But they obviously have not been in Hungary since a long time. They don't speak Hungarian. They don't really know how the music actually works. That Hungarian music, I mean. So when I was 13 and I started hearing the first real Hungarian recordings, and then when I was 19, and by that time when I had started playing the violin, I was in Budapest and really saw them play, and I was like, this is what I have to learn, absolutely. Because I was hoping to get my violin technique up to scratch. I had started when I was 17, violin, which is kind of ridiculously late. And at first I didn't have high hopes. I would like to be able to play in a Manus style. Manus, and I really specifically use the word Manus, like the old style of my grandfathers, of Bambula Ferret, of Stadelweiss, people that you might not have heard either recordings of or not even have heard of at all. They had a very kind of slow vibrato, I don't know how to put this. Not much technique, just playing nice melodies. They would play Stardust or, slow things or some kind of half Hungarian-ish like thingamingis. But I liked that style, and I still do. Stadelweiss is the only one you could find on YouTube. Stadelweiss, yeah. So Stadelweiss and those people, they had this very specific old style of playing. Fappi's father as well, Tavele.
Fappy Lafferton, for those of you who don't know him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. And as I had just been at one of those encampments, or what do you call them? Those places where a lot of Sinti or Manus live in Holland, where Stochlo and Moses. And I was actually staying at my aunt Metzke's house or wagon, together with her sons Moses and Samuel and Joshua and Sephora. And for like 2 weeks, and I had a tremendously good time because my old uncle Waso Grunholz was still alive, who was an amazing composer, guitar player, teacher, very nice, gentle guy. And I learned a lot from him. But the one thing that shocked me, that struck me, was that it was like a factory of guitar players, my family. And I was like, where's the violin gone? And then we had this violin and some bow, and so one day I just decided I have to try to get my head around this instrument. Even though I thought I would never really become a violin player, I just hoped maybe to be able to play something like... something of that sort, that was...
That's the sound. That's like the...
Yeah, that's the old Manus sound.
Yeah.
It's not what Grappelli had. Grappelli was not a Manus anyways, but that kind of... And so I thought maybe that is possible. So I just started, and very, very soon, of course, like 2 years later, I knew that I actually wanted to become a good violin player if possible still, and I started to try to find out if I could find ways to really make my technique better and better. And then when I was 23, I went to Budapest and studied for 1.5 years. Every week I had 2 lessons, and I practiced 7 hours a day. And ever since, I've been trying to get better at this pretty impossible and pitiless instrument. And I left the clarinet just at the moment when I was really becoming a good player, actually. I was 24. I was in Budapest. I had taken one lesson with a fantastic clarinet player, because that Hungarian Budapest style clarinet playing also really intrigued me. And I took one lesson, and when I started to actually practice what he showed me, which was amazing, and I could have done it. The only thing is I just realized I don't have the time. If I want to do the violin as well, which was the main reason why I came to Budapest, I just will not have the energy and the time to do both. Which is then when I decided to drop the clarinet and just play violin and guitar. And for a long time I called myself a guitarist who plays some violin. And now, just mainly because of practical reasons, it kind of turns around. I hardly ever play guitar because I just can't bring my own instrument to anywhere. Because if I have a violin and a guitar, it starts to become really troublesome with flights and allowance of luggage and blah blah blah. And they say, yeah, but we have good guitars here. But I'm a little bit too picky, maybe. I know exactly what I want for a guitar, and I hardly ever find anything that is vaguely like what I would want. Actually, sometimes I prefer to have a good classical guitar with nylon strings than an, in my opinion, bad Gypsy Jazz guitar. This is how far it goes.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, but so I play mainly violin It's just also easy to transport, and it's also the thing that I need to practice every day. I feel really deeply unhappy and uneasy if I haven't practiced for 4 days. I still feel like I'm catching up with lost time, that I should have started violin when I was 4, and then I would not have this problem now. But I have to. So guitar, I can easily not pick up the guitar for a year and still have the same level as I had before. But I could never do that with violin. I think if I would have to stop playing the violin for a year, I would not even pick it up again. It's just too impossible.
You would lose too much muscle memory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of mentioned this. We're going to delve away from the gypsy jazz world or the manouche side of things. And you mentioned you went to Hungary and you studied Hungarian music, but I know you played, like, you have your Budapest orchestra that you had, but this is not quite also what you do, is like the Transylvanian style, or like the more village music too.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain the difference of that, and maybe talk a little bit about if the relation between the two, but then also how they're different?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff to unpack here. I think I'll start again from the manouche side of things, because that's how I got into it, which is that, so the manouche, they have this idea that they play some Hungarian music, and some of them actually do more or less, like Django Reinhardt had quite some Hungarian tunes. At least he didn't really play them in a Hungarian way. It sounded
like T.D. Winterstein too.
Yeah.
As well, was kind of the similar thing. He did actual Hungarian tunes also, right? Or was
absolutely. Yeah. Every now and then there was some Hungarian tunes amongst them, and sometimes they were made up things, and sometimes there were Russian things that they would still call Hungarian, just because they didn't really know. But that's all right. And in a kind of Hungarian-ish like style, in the same way as I was playing flamenco when I was a kid. Something that sounds kind of similar, but yeah, anyway. And the Tatamirando in Holland as well. Same thing. And so when I went to Hungary, I went for this kind of style of music, but then played as it should be played, with cimbalom, double bass, cello, brač, which is this viola that you play this way, and has 4 strings and normal bridge, and you play 2 strings at a time, and you always accompany. It's fantastically interesting. That I could send you to the Bible of brač playing for transfer.
Yeah, if you send me this, I'll put it all. Is it? I'll put this all in the description on the YouTube video. So make sure to send that.
That's cool. Yeah, I will. Hanko Ferenc. He was amazing. Unfortunately, it's not a video; it's a recording. But it's just amazing what he does. Just brač and violin, so you can really hear the viola, because the viola very often disappears into but you don't really hear it. But if it would stop playing, you would suddenly go, the band is by half reduced.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very important. Cimbalom, this dulcimer that you play with hammers, that is also an important feature. There's clarinet. There's normally 2 violins at least. The second violin has to play always the second and third voice if possible, which is a hell of a job, because it's always double stops all over the place. And so that style was composed by Hungarian nobility. That's at least how it started off in the 1800s and something, to create a new style of music that would be at least Hungarian and not Viennese or English or French or Mozart. But so they would want their own style of music, but they would also not want it to be the villagers' music, because the villagers are illiterate, analphabetic. They don't, they're the
peasants.
They're the peasants. That's primitive. So we don't want that. We want classy, upper class music. So they constructed a new style of music that became very quickly very popular all over the place, also with the peasants. Which is then also why Bartók Béla and Kodály Zsolt had to ring the alarm bell, because it was starting to replace the real traditional village music, which would have been absolutely, I agree, a pity that if it had been lost to Magyar Nota. But on the other hand, now Magyar Nota is losing, because the Hungarian purists, they go, this is not the real Hungarian traditional music. This is only made up. It's a artificial folk. That's what they call it, basically. And that's also unfair, in my opinion, because that's like fado in Portugal. It's it's beautiful music, and it's also not the traditional villagers' music. It's also not ancient. It's not like 1,000 years old. It's also composed, made up in a way, but they don't call it artificial. They just call it fado, and it's fine. And that should be the case with Magyar Nota, and then things would be more fair, I think. I'm one of the rare people who really like both styles, the village music and the Magyar Nota. That's how they call this. Magyar Nota means Hungarian song. But the Magyar Nota uses classical violin technique, classical double bass playing technique, classical cello, classical clarinet, and then made it into a kind of folklore-like sound of music. So that's why I wanted to learn it as well, because I thought, on one hand, it's close to my family, because they think that's what they are playing, and also because it would help my violin technique tremendously. Because I was also very interested in Romanian music, but Romanian music has much less of the kind of classical sound to it. So, and I hoped by learning Magyar Nota that I would get basically both sides, just the kind of gypsy, my family thing, and the classical kind of violin technique. And indeed, my teacher did teach me a lot of classical things, some Bach even, and a lot of scales and arpeggios and bowing techniques. But yeah, as I said, I started late, and I started when I was 23, really taking lessons. By then I had already recorded a couple of albums, and some of them are decent even, but it's still a challenge, really. And the village music people, they were very, very what's the word I'm looking for, accueillant. They received me very well. They were very open. They received me with open arms, and up to the point even that they actually, some of the brass player and the double bass player of an old violinist who passed away in 2005, Neti Sándor, they personally came to me and asked me to make a band with them. And I was like, you don't need me, because people here in Transylvania, they know. No, we want to play with you because you have the sound as Neti Sándor had, the tone. And that was, of course, I was blown away. I was like, wow. Okay, then thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much. They didn't have to tell me that twice. So we made a band, and it was the Kalota Seg Trio, and existed in the original form until 2018. Then the bass player became too unhealthy to actually travel a lot, and then we started playing with the son of the brass player, who was also a decent bass player, and at least from the region, and knew all the repertoire. And now, unfortunately, the brass player passed away. So now I'm having to reform the band again, and I might still do it. And the same for the Budapest Gypsy Orchestra. It is still kind of slowly going on sometimes in smaller versions. Cello player also passed away, and there's not really a replacement. There is one cello player, but he's as yet, in my opinion, too young, and therefore trying to establish his showing off, let's say, simply. He's a good player, he's talented and everything, but he's not yet softened enough to be a good band member in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, well,
okay,
that's my
yeah. So would you say all these other styles, like the Romanian style, or even some music from the Balkan and then the Hungarian, do you think it has a relation to the music of Django, or do you think it's separate? Do you think it was separate music?
I definitely think of it as separate styles, separate music. I don't think Django was really interested. I wouldn't say he didn't like it, but what he wanted to do was play jazz, and his examples were people like Louis Armstrong first, and Duke Ellington, and then he played with Coleman Hawkins and with Bill Coleman, and then he started listening to Debussy, and that's stuff that clearly influenced him. I couldn't say that I hear any gypsy, to use the word, influence in his music at all, other than maybe just the fact that he was playing the guitar a thick pick, which comes from the mandolin. Also the type of guitar, Maccaferi, Olivieri, Di Mauro, Castellucci, you name it. It's all Italian, and it's all based on mandolin building of the la lutherie, the building of the instrument, making of the instrument is mandolin-like, and so maybe that's a bit of a kind of gypsy-ish influence. There is one tune, only one, Vendredi 13, where I can vaguely hear, like, this is like how my family would accompany a Hungarian tune. That's the one moment, and then there would be Oči Chornia. Yeah,
and he does there's like another version. It's a medley where he plays another Russian tune with it too. But
and he also does Songe d'automne, which also is said to be Russian, but it's not actually. It's what's the name?
Archibald.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. But Russians also played it, so God knows. But I don't really feel that there is a big connection with gypsy culture as such from Django onwards. From the gypsies out, of course, yes, because they recognize him as he was ours. He was we are like him, and they identify with him, and they saw that he had a lot of success, so they start trying to do the same thing. So it became a gypsy thing, but it wasn't, I think, in Django's intention directly. But I mean, whatever. It doesn't how I don't really know, of course.
Yeah.
We don't know what his parents were playing. We have no idea.
Yeah, I've read places he studied a certain, I don't know what this music called. There's a guy named Castro. It was like something Castro, and it wasn't a guitar. It was a guitar-like instrument that Django supposedly studied with this guy, but it was not. I'll send you the recording of this. It's Paulo Castro or something like that, but it's not really gypsy music. It's like
well, he was definitely playing musette.
Yeah,
because that was, I also often say provocatively, I don't really mean that, but gypsy music doesn't really exist, because gypsies will play the music of the country what they live in. If you're a Serbian gypsy and you move to Croatia, the first thing you want to do is learn all the local repertoire, because otherwise you're not going to make any money. It's simple as that. So in Transylvania as well, the gypsies, they have to play Hungarian music and Romanian music, and in earlier times also Jewish music, and even Schwab and Saxon music, and the more you knew, the more money you could make.
Yeah.
But there was not something like gypsy music. There's only the only communities that have real gypsy music in a way, and even then it's very much influenced by the cultures around them, are those like in Hungary. There's a type of gypsy that is called Ola Cigány, and they were originally not professional musicians. They had the music that they would play for themselves, and that then is much more like real gypsy music, because it was not trying to please the non-gypsy community, and it had much more songs only in Romanes, and they didn't have instruments. They had a jug for water, for milk, in aluminium, and they would hit it, and there would be a lot of percussion, and that's a lot of fun. I mean, I like that stuff, but they were not professional musicians, so they were not in service, basically. And so gypsies in France, musette became popular. First thing they do is learn all the musette and go and play and make a lot of money. Is it gypsy music? I don't know if it is. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Magyar Nóta, same thing, this Hungarian style that I was talking about in Budapest, the composed by nobility, Hungarian nobility. The nobility, they hired gypsy musicians to become trained as a classical player, so that they then could play the new style of music. But after that, it has always and only be gypsies who played that style of music. Is it gypsy music? I don't know. Not really. Yeah. In essence, it's not. But it becomes it because they play it. But is it then gypsy? Well, I always found that hard to answer.
Yeah.
Or at least I found it fun to think about. And I don't really want the answer, actually. I'm not,
Maybe there's not much use thinking about it.
Even.
Yeah. It's like, because a lot of, like you said, a lot of this is just pop music from,
Yeah.
At one point in time, it was pop music. I've heard it called cafe music too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's like this blend of all these songs from different cultures.
Yeah.
That.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In Romania, you also have a style that they call cafe concert,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically they call it also romance,
Mm-hmm.
like just like in Russia. Also, they have romancy, which is like slow, languorous, melancholic songs.
Yeah.
Well, that becomes then popular, and then gypsies play it, and then it becomes gypsy music. Anyway, it's just fun. Yeah.
All right, I'll do like one or two more questions.
Mm-hmm.
How about so? What would you consider like authentic Django music? What's like when you hear someone or like something that you consider like that actually moves you in some way, or something that really has the right vibe to it or the right energy?
Oof, you mean of things that happen today? Or you mean...
how about I don't want to go too far back. But
No.
like maybe in the last 30 years or so, something like that. So I guess maybe today, because...
Yeah. But I mean, obviously my Uncle Fappy would be one of the first that comes up. He has such a nice touch, a good tone, because that's the thing that I'm missing most in many players today is tone. They make sound, yes, but there's not much care for the real. Many people play with these Dunlop picks, for example. I mean, I'm not. I cannot say that I'm against it, and many people actually make a decent sound with it. But it's, as far as I can say, only decent. It's never the real thing. You need at least like a good 2, 3, 4 millimeters of good material in your hand to have to be able to create the sound that I would really call. The Django also, he never played with a Dunlop. He wouldn't have wanted to. It's because it doesn't sound right. It almost can. You can make it sound pretty all right, and Django definitely would have managed pretty well. But he would still have rather gotten a button of his coat that was made of galalit, which is his first plastic that kind of made of casein and some chemical. I don't exactly know. And just take a piece of sandpaper and make it into a good pick, or tortoiseshell, of course, which is unfortunate, but it's still the best sound. Absolutely is the best sound. There's nothing that can equal that, unfortunately, for the tortoise. And Fappy, absolutely. And then there's a couple of my own friends. I guess they have been also a little bit influenced by what I like. There's Koen de Kouter, who is a colleague of my father's, a Flemish musician who has very much his own style, so I wouldn't call it Django, but at least I hear more Django in it than in many modern players of today, just because of choices of repertoire, choices of chords, choices of, again, the tone, the real, and the vibrato as well. Whom else could I? Renaud Dardenne, a friend of mine, whom's playing I really like. Benjamin Clément, obviously. There is well, of course, it's always a bit weird when you're on screen and you're talking about people who are alive. There's Duved, for example, and I met once. Really, we played together and we had fun, and we did some nice Joe Venuti thing that I learned in quickly, and a duo. And I mean, and he played on my guitar, which I was very happy about because it suited him, I think. And I like his playing. I still feel he's one of the rare people where you can straight away hear that Django is his reference. Then on the other hand, I would like to hear a little bit more of him, of his own inventiveness, but that may come still, because he's definitely a hardworking guy and looking at interesting angles. So I like that. Yeah, there's even the old Dorado Schmidt by times. Not on all recordings, but there's moments where I really like his playing because it has also this lyrical touch to it and also a pretty nice tone. Yeah, well, there you go. I guess that's There must be others. There was my uncle Wazo Grunhold, who was obviously fantastic.
Yeah, there's not much recording of him.
No.
It's very because he was part of a
religious community where
Yeah.
he was not allowed to bring his music on stage.
Mhm.
But luckily he composed a lot of things, and also I have a couple of recordings still that I have to somehow get digitalized and would want to put up onto my YouTube channel when I can.
Mhm.
Soon, I hope. It's not video, but it's recordings.
Audio.
Yeah, audio, and very nice. And he was definitely an incredible inspiration for me.
I think for many, that's when I understand, he was kind of the
Well, neither Fapi, neither Jimmy, neither Stochelo, neither Kaci, neither Falco, neither the whole bunch of gypsies from Holland would have played what they play
Mm-hmm.
if it weren't for Wazo.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, Fapi very often does these very beautiful intros. When you, for example, you say, let's play Melodie au Crépuscule, and before you know it, he's off into some improvisation for a minute by himself before he launches the theme. And that's always Wazo. It's pure Wazo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying that he's stealing it. It's inspired and it's remolded into Fapi's thing, but it is Wazo's the basic ideas of it is Wazo Grunholz, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And for me as well, a lot. I flatter myself that I'm influenced by him quite a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So last question. This is if you had a piece of advice you could give to someone starting out music that takes it very seriously, what would it be? Like someone or someone who had already started, but they're a young musician that clearly shows they want to do it for a living or whatever. Like it's what would your advice to them be?
oh God, that's an interesting question. First of all, I think try to have a focus, a direction. Don't try to do a bit of everything. Go deeply in one thing for a long time. And go and see those people, if you can, if they're still alive, who really play that thing that you want to learn. Concentrate on it. And concentrate on sound. Because music, after all, is nothing but sound. All the visual stuff is unimportant. Totally. To music. I mean, music is made for and by the ears. So concentrate on sound, on quality of sound and rhythm. Quality of the timing. That's all. I mean, nothing else matters, you know. And then later, when you've really dug into something and you know what you wanted to know, you can start concentrating on something else. And of course, please keep brightening your what's the word I'm looking for? Horizon. Horizon. Yeah. Keep looking for new things. Keep looking for new inspiration. Keep looking for things that you might never have thought you would ever play. Keep awake, you know. And I would say keep away from pop music, but that's my own.
Yeah. I can agree with that a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, much as I admire, for example, the Beatles or something like that, but I mean, it's not. That's not. Yeah, I don't. Doesn't matter actually. But definitely, yeah, keep awake, keep being awake, and practice a lot, slowly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, thanks for doing this interview, and there'll be a bunch of links below for you to check out. Be sure I'll put a link to Tcha's YouTube page, so you go over there and like and subscribe and follow him as well if you haven't already. And once again, we'll be at Camp Django in October, and then also there's Django in June, which we'll be teaching at as well. You'll be teaching there, correct?
If things go well with Fabi Lafertin and Dave Kelby and Vili, my old Hungarian bass player friend. That should be fun.
Yes. Anyways, looking forward to that, and see you soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.